Hello everyone. I welcome you all to class 6. My name is Wayne Gardner and I will be taking your online computer classes. Okay? Okay, let's start. The first chapter that we'll study today is chapter number 1, categories of computer and computer languages. The topics that we'll cover in this chapter are types of computers. First one is microcomputers, second one mini computers, third one mainframe, and the fourth one is supercomputers. Then computer languages. First one machine language, second assembly language, third one high level language, and the fourth one is fourth generation language. And the last topic that we'll see is the language processors. All right. Types of computers. The first one is microcomputers. These computers are very small in size and they cost very less. They are usually designed for personal use, so they are also known as personal computers or PCs. Examples are Commodore or IBM PC. They are mainly used in homes, offices, shops, and banks. Right now, all the computer that we use in our home, like laptop or desktop, right, they are known as the microcomputers, and they are not very expensive. Okay, they can be used in our homes, in offices, shops, banks, etc., etc. All right, the microcomputers are of following types. They are actually of 6 types. First one is your desktop computer. It is designed to fit comfortably on top of a desk. You can put it on top of a desk. It has a different components like a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor, a cabinet, right? And everything combines together to work as a single unit, right? These are known as desktop computers. Next is your laptop computer. Laptops are smaller than desktops and they can be placed on the lap. They are operated through batteries. Like for example, if you're working with a laptop with the electricity connection and suddenly the light goes off, then there is no problem. Why? Because it works on the batteries also. So when the light goes off, it switches on to the battery mode, right? It works similar as a desktop, but little more expensive than a desktop. Why? Because they are smaller in size. They are you can take them anywhere wherever you like. They're portable, and people who travel a lot usually they use the laptops. The size of a laptop varies between 13 to 15 inch. It can be more than 15 inch also, but usually it comes in the size of 13 to 15 inch. Okay, the next one is your tablet computers. These computers are smaller and lighter than a laptop, but bigger than a smartphone. Okay, all of you must be having a smartphone at home, right? So tablets are bigger in size than a smartphone but smaller than a laptop. Okay, they have a touch screen instead of a keyboard. These tablet computers do not have a keyboard. They have instead a touch screen enabled keyboard or a mouse. The size of tablet computer varies from 7 to 10 inch. Okay, they can be used to read ebooks, watching movies, viewing photos, watching cartoons, and etc., etc. Okay, next is your palm top computer. It is a small device which can fit in your palm. They have similar features as that of a computer. It has a small screen size and compressed keyboard. Some palm top devices has a pen instead of a keyboard and a mouse. Now, palm top computers can fit on your palm. They have a small screen and a small keyboard. Now, few palm top computers do not have a keyboard. Instead, they have a pen. Why? So that you can touch it on the screen with the pen and whatever you want to do, you can do it with that pen. Okay. Next is your handheld devices. Now the devices which you can hold it in your hand, they are known as the handheld devices. Okay, example like a tablet or a smartphone or a PDA, which is a personal digital assistant. These are all the examples of a handheld devices. Now smartphone is also an example of a handheld device. Smartphone is what? Smartphone is a combination of a computer and a mobile phone. It can do whatever a computer can do, and it can do whatever mobile can do. You can make calls, you can send messages, you can uh, work on a smartphone like you work on your laptop or a computer. You can browse net, you can play games, you can create word files on your smartphone. Okay, so it is a combination of a computer and a mobile phone. Next is your game console. It is a device through which you can play video games. Most of you must have already played, must be knowing about the game console. Some of you who do not know, just it's for them. They have a display screen, game control like joystick, buttons, and speakers. You can connect these consoles to a television or a computer. Examples are Microsoft Xbox, Sony PlayStation, Nintendo GameCube, and Nintendo Wii. These are the few examples of the gaming consoles. The last one is embedded system. A system which has a computer hardware with software embedded into a larger device. They have essential components like CPU, RAM, ROM, input and output medium, but does not have a keyboard or a screen. Example, TV sets, telephones, digital cameras, washing machines, etc. I'll give you a small example. All of you must be having an automatic washing machine at home, right? Now, how does it work? You provide few instructions to the machine from the panel on top, like for how much time the machine should run, how much water level should be there, right? And do you want to wash the clothes, then rinse the clothes and then dry them, or you just want to rinse the clothes and then dry, or you just want to dry the clothes? Whatever instruction you give it to it, it will run accordingly. Okay. Now there is a small chip embedded inside that machine. That chip is taking all the instructions that you are providing through that keyboard, that is through the panel that is on top of the machine, right? After taking the instructions from you, that chip is making that washing machine execute the instructions which you have provided. So that small chip, a tiny chip, is making a big machine execute the task that you have given to the chip, right? So this is an example of an embedded system. All right. Next is your mini computers. These are bigger in size than microcomputers, almost the size of a refrigerator, meaning they are as big as a refrigerator. Okay. They have higher processing speed and are expensive than a microcomputers. They have high speed, and are expensive. They can support users from 4 to 200, meaning minimum 4 users and maximum 200 users can work on a mini computer at a time. At a particular time, minimum 4 and maximum 200 people can work on a mini computer. They are used in banks, universities, etc. Examples are PDP-8, HP 2100 and Microvax 3100. Okay. Then comes your mainframe computers. These are very powerful than a microcomputer and a mini computer. They have a they are big in size, has a large memory and a high speed than both the mini computer and the microcomputers. Now they can handle huge amount of data, very large amount of data these computers can handle. They can handle more than 100 users at a time. This is why they are used in networking environment. More than 100 users they can handle. Mini computers can only handle up to 200 people, but this mainframe computer can handle hundreds of users at a time. Okay, they are very expensive and are used in big organizations like banks, scientific laboratories, railway tickets, etc. Examples are IBM Z series, PDP-10 and System Z10. Now I'll give you one example. Now you must have heard that or must be knowing about the railway Tatkal ticket booking in India. Okay? Now what happens that time? The entire India who wants to travel, right? What do? They sit next to the computer or the laptop, or they sit with their mobile phones, the smartphones, ready, logged in on their accounts, railway accounts, to book a ticket at 10 o'clock. Now, Railways has only one single server which is located in Mumbai. Alright, now what happens when the server gets so many requests? The server has to handle all the requests, right? Now just imagine all over India people are trying to book tickets, right, at 10 o'clock at a particular time, which is the 10 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, right? Now what will happen if railway uses a microcomputer or a mini computer? Then so many requests, those computers will not be able to handle. The servers will crash, right? So to handle so many requests, Railways has to use a computer which can handle those requests. This is why they use the mainframe computers. Okay, next one is your supercomputer. These are the most powerful computers with a huge processing speed. The most powerful computers ever to be created by a man in the world is a supercomputer. They are used for weather forecasting, space researches, satellite controls, etc. Right? Examples: Cray 1, Cray 2, Param, Tianhe 2, Sunway, Taihu Light. Now, out of these five, there is one supercomputer which has been created by India, and that is Param. Okay. So, next is your computer languages. Now, language is a medium to express our views and feelings. Like when we talk to each other, human beings, when we talk to each other, we use a particular language, be it English, be it Hindi, or any other language, right? The same way, when we communicate with a computer, we need a language, right? And the language which computer understands, because the computer does not understand English or Hindi or Arabic or Chinese or any other language, right? Computer only understands one language. We'll come to that language in a few minutes, right? Okay. A program is a set of instructions that tells the computer what to do. A program. What is a program? The definition is a set of instructions that tells the computer what the computer has to do. The process of writing specific instructions in a computer language is called programming. If we provide any instructions to a computer in its own language, that is known as programming. Right? Now, every programming language has its own set of rules. There are different programming languages. Every programming language has its own set of rules that you need not to go in, deep into it, because that you study from class 8 and onwards, right? Okay, now let's come to the types of computer languages. Now, computer languages are divided into four parts. First one is your machine language, Second one is your assembly language. Third one, high level language. And the fourth one is fourth generation language, machine language. Okay. A computer can only understand the machine language. It does not understand any other language, be it English, be it Hindi, be it Urdu, be it Arabic, be it Chinese, be it Japanese, anything. It does not understand anything. It only understands one language, and which is the machine language. Machine language consists of 0 and 1, where 0 means off state and 1 means on state. It has a high speed and a low memory utilization. That means the speed is high, but the utilization of the memory is low. Understanding and learning a machine language is very difficult and also time consuming. Now imagine we people learning machine language to communicate with the computer. That is not possible for us, right? So there is a different way of communicating actually with the computer. We'll come to that later. At the end of the chapter, the topic is there, through which we'll come to know how we communicate with the computer. Okay. Abhi, for now, just understand that computer only understands a machine language. Machine language uses 0 and 1. 0 means off, 1 means on. Okay. Now, machine language is machine dependent, meaning if you have created any program on one machine, that program will only execute on that particular machine. It will not execute on any other machine, any other computer. It will not execute. This is why it is known as machine dependent, and which is why it is also called a low level language, right? Now, supposing I'll give you one example how we can communicate with a computer. Supposing I understand English, you all understand some other language. Supposing Hindi, you all understand Hindi language and I understand English language. Now, if I say something in English, you will not be able to understand. And when you say something in Hindi, I will not be able to understand, right? So, how will we communicate to each other? In that case, what we'll require is a translator, right? So that person, a third person, a translator who can translate your language to my language and my language to your language, so that both of us can understand each other, right? So computer also works like that. When we give any instruction to a computer, right, we give it in our language which we understand, like Hindi or English or any other language, but computer does not understand that. Now what happens, what we type, it goes inside the computer, but before reaching the CPU, that instruction or instructions are converted into binary form. Binary means 0 and 1 form, machine language form, right? It is converted into machine language and then it is sent to the CPU for processing. Now CPU understands the machine language only, right? It processes the instructions and then returns the output in the machine language only, that is 0 and 1. Now when the output is coming back, it is again translated or transformed from machine language to the human readable language, and then it is displayed on the monitor, right? So this transformation is done by a device. The name of the device is language processor or language translator, that we'll study at the end of the chapter. Okay, now that device, what does it do? It translates or converts the human readable language into machine language and sends the instructions to the CPU for processing. And when the processing is done, when the CPU returns the output, that output the language translator again transforms or converts that output from machine language into human readable language, and then it is displayed on the monitor. Okay. All right. Machine dependent means a program written in one computer will only run on that computer. It will not run on any other computer. I just told you that thing. Okay. Next is your assembly language. This language uses mnemonic codes in place of 0 and 1. This is why it is easy to work in assembly language than in binary language. It is also a machine dependent and it is also time consuming. So this language is also known as a low level language. Now, instead of 0 and 1, this language uses mnemonic codes. Now, if we create any program in an assembly language on one particular machine, so that program will only execute on that particular machine. It will not execute on any other machine. This is why this language is also known as a low level language, right? All right. The next language is your high level language. Since it was not easy to use machine and assembly language, so people developed a new language which has following features. It is simple and user friendly. Languages that is machine independent. Now, machine language and assembly language, they were machine dependent, right? This high level language is machine independent, meaning if you create a program in a high level language, right, on any machine, any computer, that program can execute and will execute on any other computer also. Like, unlike assembly and machine language, in high level language the programs will execute on any machine, on any computer. It is not necessary that if you have created a program in high level language, it is not necessary that if you have created a program in a high level language that will only execute in on that particular machine on which it has been created. It will execute on any machine, right? Now, due to the above features, it became easy to learn and use the computer languages and also to interact with the computer. Many people started writing programs using these languages. Okay, earlier it was little difficult with assembly language and machine language. It was a bit difficult to communicate with the computer, but after the development of the high level language, it became easier to communicate with the computer. Okay. Now, next one is the fourth generation language. These languages are closer to human languages than any other high level language. Now, the fourth generation language is the most closest language to the human language, which a human can understand, right, than any other high level language. The fourth generation language has the following features. It is highly user friendly and independent of any operating system, meaning it is very user friendly and independent of any operating system. Means if you have created a program in Windows, on Windows platform, you can execute that program on any other operating system like Linux or Macintosh, Apple Macintosh, right? So they are operating system independent also. High level language was machine dependent. These languages are machine dependent as well as operating system independent. Okay. They have very high speed of execution. They are designed to reduce the programming efforts. Minimum efforts from the users are required to obtain any information from the computer using the fourth generation language. Okay. It is designed to reduce the overall time taken in developing a software and the cost of production. Example, structured query language. This structured query language is a language which helps us in doing our task. Whatever instruction we give to the computer using this language, it is done very quickly. Okay. Okay, so the next topic is features of all the languages. Machine language, it uses binary codes, that is 0 and 1. It is machine dependent, and it is the only language which is directly understood by a computer. Assembly language, it uses mnemonic codes or symbols in place of binary numbers, that is 0 and 1. It is also machine dependent. It has to be converted to machine language by a translator program, which is assembler. High level language uses English words and mathematical operators. This language is machine independent, but this a program written in this language also has to be converted to machine language by a translator program, which is interpreter or a compiler. Now, these languages are also highly user friendly. Fourth generation language, machine independent, minimal user skills required to obtain a result, and application development tools. They provide few tools to develop an application, right? Next is your language processor. Now, as we all know that a computer can only understand a machine language, so if a program is written in any other language, computer language, it has to be converted into machine language. To translate any high level language program into machine language, a software is required. This software is known as a language processor or a language translator. Little while ago I told you all about the language translator. When we send any instruction to a computer, it is translated to the machine language first, and then it is sent to the computer for processing. And when the computer processes, the CPU processes it. When the result is sent back, it is again converted from machine language to the human readable language. Okay. Now, there are three types of language processors. First one is the assembler. The assembler translates the assembly language into the machine language. See, translator program which is used to convert an assembly language program into machine language is known as an assembler. A program which is written in assembly language is known as a source program, whereas the program converted into machine language by the assembler is known as object program or object code. Now, we've written a program in assembly language. So before it is converted into machine language, it is known as a source program. And after it is converted into machine language by the assembler, then it is known as object program or object code. Okay. Now, next one is your interpreter. This translator program is used to convert a high level language program into machine language. An interpreter translates line by line, meaning it will check one line at a time, and if it finds any error in that line, it will not check the remaining lines until that error is corrected. These are preferred for beginners, and it is slow in execution as it checks one line at a time. Now, supposing I've written a program in a high level language, right? Now, the interpreter, what it will do, it will translate the program written in high level language into machine language, but it will read the program line by line, or it will check the program line by line. Supposing there are 10 lines, it will keep checking first line, then second, then third. Supposing on line number 5 there is some error, right? So it will stop over there only. It will not go further until and unless you correct that error or mistake. Whatever mistake is there, you need to correct it, and then only it will go forward and check the remaining lines. Until and unless that error is not corrected, it will not go further. Okay, so that is your interpreter. Now, last topic is your compiler. Compiler is also a translator program which translates a high level language into machine language. It checks the whole program at once and notes the error with the line number. These are faster in execution than an interpreter. Now, compiler does the same thing. Compiler also translates the high level language program into machine language. The only difference is it checks the entire program at a time, right? And then notes down the errors with the line number. Now, for example, I have written a program again with 10 lines in it, right? When if I use a compiler, right? Compiler, what it will do, it will check the entire program, all the 10 lines it will check, and it will note down which line number has an error. If there are no errors, no errors will be shown. If it has any error, if the program has any error, the compiler will note down line number so and so has, for example, line number 5 has some error, please correct it. Line number 8 has some error, please correct it. Right? So in a way, these are faster than compiler. Why? Because it is checking the entire program at a time and then telling you that so and so line number has some error, whereas an interpreter checks line by line and it stops if for example there are in all the 10 lines there is an error, so 10 times you will have to execute the program, right? Whereas in compiler you only have to execute it once. It will tell you the error at once only. Okay, so that is the end of the chapter number 1. I hope all of you have understood the chapter. If not, do not worry. Whenever the school reopens, I will revise the chapter once again. Okay? Now stay home, stay safe. Thank you.